Hey guys, how you all doing? Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm doing my April wrap up. So I read 10 books in the month of April, and some of them were great, some of them were not. Quite a few of them were rereads. So yeah, let's just jump right on into the wrap up. So the first book that I read in the month of April is Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. I was rereading this as a part of the Hunger Games read-along to prepare for the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which comes out this month. And I'm scared and excited at the same time. But anyways, so this one I was really excited to reread because I haven't reread it since I think 2015. So it's been a really long time, 5 years since I've read it, and I was just really looking forward to jumping back into it and just re-experiencing everything. I obviously love this book so much. I love this series so much, and rereading it has kind of like reinvigorated my love for it. I love how this book feels different from the first two in the way that it doesn't take place during the games anymore, but it kind of does in its own way, which I really appreciate. I don't know, I just think that this book doesn't get the amount of credit that it deserves, and even I used to think that I didn't like it. I used to think, I mean, it still is my least favorite in the series, I think, but I love it. I have like a whole new appreciation and love for it as I've grown older. It's so masterfully done, and Suzanne Collins just really demonstrates how good of an author she is while writing this book. It's just so freaking phenomenal. There's a lot of blue tabs in this book because there's just so many sad moments. It's a heartbreaking book, and I cried. I have a reading vlog up where I reread this book, I think, so you can go check that up in the cards. So the second book that I read is one of the ones that was a flop, unfortunately, and that is The Reckoning of Noah Shaw by Michelle Hodkin. This is the second book in the Noah Shaw Confessions trilogy. So I went into this book knowing that I probably wouldn't like it, but I was still remaining kind of hopeful that I would. I didn't like the first book, The Becoming of Noah Shaw. I read it right after rereading The Retribution of Mara Dyer, and it just didn't feel the same. The characters didn't feel right, and it takes place shortly after Mara Dyer, and it just doesn't hold up to that trilogy, and it wasn't good, and so I didn't like that book, so I held off reading this book for a really long time. I got it at the end of 2018 because that's when it came out, I believe, and I held off reading it. But then I was just kind of looking at my shelf and I was like, I'm kind of in the mood for some Mara and Noah bullshit, so I picked it up on a whim. I also have this in a reading vlog that you guys can check up above in the cards, but this book was such a mess, and this book is what made me decide to actually DNF this series and unhaul it. I actually just took this out of an unhauled box on my floor so I could show it in this video. I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of it. So I have multiple issues with this book and with this series, but particularly this book, because I think this book was even worse than the Becoming of Noah Shaw. This book just was really god-awful. So first of all, we don't even get Mara in this book until the very end. I don't even care if that's a spoiler, but we don't get Mara at all in this book, okay? And because of the ending of The Becoming of Noah Shaw, I didn't fully expect for her to be like in the beginning of the book, but I was really hoping that at some point, maybe like in the middle, she would come in, and I just kept waiting for it. And the farther into it I read, I was like, we're not gonna get Mara, are we? But she's not even in this book, and the whole purpose of me finally picking this book up was because I want some Mara and Noah bullshit, and that's not what I got. Another issue that I had with this book is it felt like nothing was happening. Like the entire book, I had no idea what was going on. I felt like nothing was happening. And this book was just confusing, and it felt like a mess. The pacing felt really weird. The structure felt really odd. I can't even describe to you what the structure of this book was. It was like such a boring ass mess. But yeah, so like I said, I am DNFing this series at book 2, even though the book cover for number 3 is so gorgeous. But yeah, I don't know, I think this whole series is pointless and stupid, and I honestly didn't see a reason for this trilogy to be a thing, even though I was really excited for it because I love Noah Shaw, but it doesn't hold up to the other books, and it's really disappointing. So now I'm just going to consider Mara and Noah's story cut off at The Retribution of Mara Dyer. These books no longer exist. I feel like a lot of my thoughts can be summed up in Whitney's Goodreads review. I'll try to remember to link it down below because I read it after reading this book and I was like, this makes so much sense. So I will definitely be linking that down below if I can remember. The next book I actually picked up on audiobook, and that is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I actually physically read the last third of the book while listening to the audiobook, which I feel like really really like picked up the experience for me, and I'm really glad that I did that because it was just so good. Also, this audiobook is narrated by my favorite audiobook narrator, Rebecca Soler. She also does the Marissa Meyer books. She's just so good. She also did Sadie by Courtney Summers. So good. So if you don't know what Caraval is about, it's kind of hard for me to explain. I'm not really good at explaining things, but basically our main character Scarlett, growing up, she's been obsessed with this thing called Caraval. It's like this game thing run by this guy named Legend, and it's like magical and whimsical and cool, and she's always wanted to go, but you can only go if you've been invited by Legend. So she writes letters to Legend while growing up, begging for him to like let her and her sister come and get an invitation, and he never replies until one day where she's like, this is my last letter, not writing to anymore, and he's like, okay, you can come. So she gets invited to Caraval. She goes with her sister, but when she gets to Caraval, it's not what she expected. Her sister ends up being taken as part of the game, and she kind of has to find her sister by the end of Caraval. Otherwise, who knows what's going to happen to her. So it's this really, really fun book, like I said, whimsical, magical, and just really, really interesting. But while I was reading the book, the entire time I wasn't like overly invested in it, and I don't know if that's because I was listening to it a lot as I was going to bed. So like I would be like really tired just listening to it. I think that might have been part of the problem, but I wasn't like fully invested in the book while I was listening to it. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, but I wasn't like invested. I really enjoyed the relationship between our main character Scarlett and Julian, who's a guy that comes with her and her sister to Caraval. He takes them to Caraval. I really liked their interactions, and I also love when love interests give our main character like cute nicknames, and he called her Crimson instead of Scarlet, and the way Rebecca Soler voiced Julian, it just, oh, it sounded so good, like Crimson. I can't even like replicate it, but it sounded so beautiful, and every time he called her Crimson, I was like, yes, Crimson. But yeah, so that last third of the book that I ended up reading along to the audiobook to, it was so intense. Like, it's just, I don't know if reading it actually like heightened the experience, but it was just so intense. Like that last third, everything just got heightened and so crazy and so interesting. Like, I don't know, like this book just like took a turn, and it was just so good, and there were some plot twists at the end that I wasn't expecting, and I was like, whoa. But I absolutely love the actual game of Caraval. It was really, really interesting. But basically when you get to Caraval, you're told that it's all an elaborate performance. Nothing here is real. Don't get fooled into thinking that this is real. This is just a game. And the entire book she's trying to convince herself that none of this is real, that it's a game, and she's like second guessing whether or not it is real. And it's just, I don't know, it's so good. It's so good that you're trying to like figure it out along with Scarlett, because we only know as much as Scarlett knows, and it's just, I don't know, it was really good. So good that I instantly went on Book Outlet and bought the next 2 books, and I'm just really excited to continue on with this series. Okay, so the next one I'm not going to talk about too much, but it is Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. This is the 3rd book in the Infernal Devices series. I love this series so much. I love these characters. This is like one of my favorite finales of a series ever. It's just so good. I cried at the end. It took me a while to read this one because I kept putting it down to read other things, because like readathons, and like I just wasn't in the mood, or you know, I just wanted something quick. But yeah, I love this book. I love this series. I feel like I don't need to talk about it because you all know what it is. You all know how people feel about it, but it's just so good, and I'm so happy that I finally reread this series because it's just freaking phenomenal. The next book that I read was The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli. This was another reread for me. I told you guys I reread a lot of books this month, but I've never reread this book, and I love Becky Albertalli, love Simon Versus, you know, whatever. We don't love Leon the Offbeat, but we love Simon, okay? And this is a companion. This is the 2nd book in like the Simon Verse trilogy. If you don't know what this book is about, we basically follow our main character Molly, and she is like the queen of unrequited crushes. She has like 27 crushes that she's had on boys that she never acts on, never has had a boyfriend. And then one day she's at like this club with her sister Cassie, her twin sister Cassie, and she meets this girl named Mina, and she tells Cassie, I think this girl is your soulmate, like she's perfect for you, made for each other, you have to talk to her. And so Cassie and Mina end up dating, and Mina has this like cool like sidekick friend, and Cassie and Mina kind of make it their plan, their mission to set Molly up with Mina's friend. So Molly kind of goes along with this plan, but she also has this co-worker named Reed who she doesn't have a crush on, but maybe she does. I don't know. That was a really bad explanation, but this book is so cute. Molly has anxiety, which obviously I can relate to if you know me at all, and I really appreciated that. I didn't remember that about this book, but rereading it, I was like, right. Love that. We love Reed. He's like your typical nerd, awkward boy, which I'm obsessed with. And I don't know, it was just like a really, really good book. There's a lot of representation in the story, which we love. And I also loved rereading this because I read it before I read Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. And this is a companion sequel book. So the characters are like in the same world. So our main character, Molly, is cousins to Abby Suso, which is Simon's best friend, or one of Simon's best friends. So there are mentions of Simon and Abby in this book. We actually get to talk to Abby, and we also get to talk to Simon as well. And there's mention of Blue. I'm not going to spoil it for Simon, but we get mentions of like Simon's boyfriend, which is so cute. And I didn't like pick up on those things reading this for the first time because I never read Simon Versus. I read that one afterwards. Yeah, this is definitely a really good book. I read it really, really quickly, and I just will definitely be rereading this again in the future because it's just like, I don't know. It's just a quick, fun read. We love Becky Albertalli, and I'm in love with this book, basically. Okay, so the next 3 books I'm really not going to talk about because I have a whole spoiler-free reading vlog that you guys can check out for this, but I read the entire Scythe trilogy. So I reread Scythe and Thunderhead and read The Toll for the very first time, and I did a whole reading vlog where I try to read these 3 books in 3 days. So you guys can go check out that vlog up in the cards if you would like. I'm really proud of that video, and let me tell you, it put me in like a week-long, like kind of reading slump where I didn't pick up a book once because I was so tired after reading these. But anyways, so we reread Scythe and Thunderhead, and I actually tabbed the series, which was fun, but this was my first time at rereading these books, and I love this series. If you don't know what Scythe is about, it basically takes place in the future in a utopian society. So basically the world is perfect. They've conquered death. You can no longer die from natural causes or old age or accidents or anything like that. You can't die. So, to keep the population in check, there have been people who have been appointed scythes to glean people. So basically, they have like a quota that they have to meet, and they have to go and kill people, which they call gleaning. So we basically follow 2 characters in this book, Citra and Rowan, and they've been taken on as scythe apprentices to become a scythe. It's really, really good. There's a lot of like plot twists and stuff in it, but I do have to admit that reading these for the second time wasn't as fun as reading it for the first time. A lot of the novelty of the series wore off with the reread because the best parts, I think, about this series is like the shock factor and the plot twists that happen, but once you've already read them and you know what they are, it's not as interesting. I still really enjoyed these 2. I don't know. It was really odd to reread. But I still love this world. I think it's a really interesting world. I think the first book's my favorite. When I first read them, I couldn't decide which one was my favorite, but I think it is the first book. These books were still fun to reread, but just not as exciting as the first time. Do you know what I mean? And then The Toll was so disappointing. I heard a lot of mixed reviews about this book and people saying that it just did not live up to the first 2, and I was really, really hoping that I wasn't going to be one of those people, but I was. It really wasn't good. This book was a mess. It dragged. It's so freaking long, and it wasn't good. But you know how I was talking about how the novelty wore off with those first 2 books, like the shock factor and everything? It was definitely gone by the time reading this book, and I don't know if me reading them so close together so quickly affected that at all. That maybe I was just really tired when I was reading this book, and so that was what made me so like tired of it. I don't know, but this book just, I don't know, I just didn't find myself caring anymore at this point, and I'm kind of wishing that it somehow ended as a duology, but then there's a huge plot twist at the end, so it doesn't really make sense. Maybe it should have left off at 1 book. Maybe that's what it should have been, a standalone. But this book, I didn't care. We didn't get to see our main characters until like way, way into the book, which really bothered me, but was also expected from the ending of Thunderhead. But this book wasn't good. If you guys want to see me reading this series, then definitely go check out that vlog because I'm really proud of it, but I read the whole series. The next book, again, I don't really want to talk about because I didn't really like it, but it is The Glittering Court by Rochelle Mead. This is the first book in a series. I was kind of nervous to read it because I've heard a lot of mixed things about Richelle Mead's books that aren't in the Vampire Academy world. I've heard that they're not as good, but I think I'd heard slightly better things about this one than her other few books. So I picked this one up because it was on bargain at Barnes & Noble, and I found the audiobook on Overdrive. So I decided to listen to the audiobook. This book, I don't really know how to explain it, but our main character, I don't even know what her name is because she ends up taking up a fake name and that's just what she goes by, so I don't even know what her actual name is. I cannot remember. But we basically follow our main character who ends up calling herself Adelaide, who is like not like a royal, but she's like, she has like a good bloodline or something. Like she has like rich bloodline. Anyways, but her and her family are having some money problems, and so her grandma tries to put her in like an arranged marriage with this like weird man. And when Adelaide meets him, she's like, I don't want to marry this dude, but she's going to, right? And so they're like packing up her like entire home and firing maids and whatnot. And a man comes to her home named Cedric, and he is like looking to take one of her maids into this thing called the Glittering Court, where you basically are like educated like these like higher up people, like these like nobles, I guess. I don't really know what they're considered. And then you get like you learn how to like put dresses on and like do your hair like these people. And so he wants to take one of the maids, but the maid doesn't want to go, and so Adelaide kind of hatches a plan with her. She runs off and Adelaide will take her place. So Adelaide ends up going to the Glittering Court, running away from her arranged marriage and whatever. There is nothing really about this book that was interesting to me. It didn't hold my attention. It wasn't really captivating at all. I found myself invested in the romance for like a hot second until they actually got together, and then I just didn't care anymore. Like I was kind of more like into the chase of it and like the forbiddenness of it, and then once they actually got together I was like, oh, this is boring. But yeah, overall, like I don't have any like specific complaints about this book. I just don't think it was anything special. I'm definitely not going to be continuing on with this series, and this is another book that I'm unhauling. And then the last book that I read I'm really excited to talk about, and that is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I recently purchased this from Book Outlet, and I read it like immediately because I was just like in a mood, like a quick fluffy like pick me up read. I don't know, I was looking for something quick and easy, and this was calling to me. So this book basically follows our main character Lucy, and she works at a publishing company that has merged with another publishing company. With this merge came this guy named Joshua, and they are both assistants to like the main like CEOs of those two companies that merged together. And so they kind of work like by each other every single day, all day. And they don't like each other. They actually hate each other. They don't get along. They have like this whole like feud going on. They keep reporting each other to HR. They don't like each other. But then an opportunity for a promotion comes up, and they are competing against each other for this promotion, and this causes more tension between the two of them. But then that tension comes to a boiling point, and Lucy might realize that she doesn't actually hate Joshua. She just tricked herself into thinking she hates Joshua. And it's like your classic like hate to love book. I do have to say, the hate part didn't last as long as I thought it was going to, and it rarely ever does, honestly, in hate to love stories that I read, but that doesn't really bother me. Like I don't mind if it doesn't last that long because I just want to get to the love. But I loved the tension between the two. I loved the bickering that they had, and also Joshua had a really cute nickname for Lucy. He called her Shortcake because her family owns like this like strawberry farm, and she's really like short and small and petite, and so he calls her Shortcake for strawberry shortcake. And I just thought that was the cutest thing. And like I said earlier in this video, I just love when love interests give the main character like a cute little like funky nickname, and Shortcake I think has to take the cake. It's like the best little nickname I've ever heard, and I just think it's so cute. Like I was really worried when I started the book because the first like 30-40 pages I wasn't really that invested. I was like, oh, this writing is kind of weird, but I totally like fell into the story after those like 40 pages and became completely invested and basically read it in a sitting, and I just it was so good. This book was just so much fun, and I already kind of want to reread it because this romance is just so beautiful. And I want a Joshua. I don't know, this book was quirky and fun and cute and just a really easy, fun read, which is what I was wanting. I wanted something that would make me smile, and this book did that, so definitely recommend this book. It was freaking phenomenal. So that was all of the books that I read in the month of April. It was a pretty good reading month overall, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a huge thumbs up. Comment down below and let me know what you guys read in the month of April, and if you've read any of these books that I read. Subscribe if you have not yet already, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!